Read the title, let's get into it. And the unique opportunity for the Switch isn't what I'm going to be talking about, similar to how Arlo talked about the unique opportunity for the Switch for it being more portable, but rather I'm going to be talking about something else. Something that is going to be using comparison from back in last gen with 3DS and Vita. The Switch is currently in a 3DS type situation, where it's the lesser powerful console of its group, similar to the 3DS compared to the Vita, and similar to the DS and PSP, where it's less powerful, it's not as graphically inclined, and it inherently has a bit more of a gimmick. But let's focus on the power aspect, because that's the most important thing. As a lot of people might have pointed out, and sorry for my reflection in my glasses, you know what, let's just turn off my monitor, so I can focus easily more on the webcam as well. But point is, the 3DS was less powerful than the Vita. But the Vita had trouble with development, not because it was notoriously hard to develop for, but because it was considered an HD handheld, being at like 500 something p, and it was technically HD. Not quite 720, but technically HD nonetheless. And because of that, it was somewhat hard to develop for because it cost more money. While the 3DS was lesser powerful, had a lower resolution, being at 240p, and in general, it was just way more easy to develop for, and stereoscopic 3D wasn't that much harder to implement. Just more so trying to implement it in a creative way was the real challenge of it, and a lot of people just kind of slapped it on. Not a lot of people care about the 3D. Even the 2DS is a good example of even Nintendo saying, yeah, the 3D is not that important. Not that important. Not that important at all. But basically, they found the 3DS easier to develop for. We saw a raw revival of smaller Japanese titles. Shin Megami Tensei moved from PS2 to 3DS. We saw a lot of RPGs go to there because they weren't as powerfully inclined as needed, because there are RPGs. The gameplay is not that need to be all that strong, and they're usually quite stylized, so you don't need that much power to make it look good. So we saw companies like Atlas thrive on it. We saw games from Square Enix that were more like traditional Final Fantasy games from the NES era, like Bravely Defaults and Bravely Seconds. We saw all sorts of things on the 3DS, which made it a very interesting and diverse console because it was easy to develop for and it had a large install base. While the Vita was hard to develop for, it just needed more time, energy, and money to make things look good because it was at a higher resolution. So it was easier to see any faults in polygons, textures, and stuff like that. You couldn't skip out on that kind of stuff. While on a lower resolution, you can get away with lower resolution textures because they wouldn't show up that well if they were, they wouldn't show up that well if they were HD. Anyway, it would look just about the same and wouldn't be all that appreciable. You know, games like Smash Brothers still looks great on 3DS, despite being a 240p screen. Yeah, limited, 8-player Smash, and the power of the 3DS caused that not to be on 3DS. The point is, that was a thing that still looked amazing. And the Switch is in a similar position compared to the PS4 that we might see with smaller titles. Now the PS4, is meant for more bigger AAA gaming and stuff like that. So naturally, it has a large install base, it has a lot of power to work with, people push the graphics a lot, it's your eye candy machine. I have a PS4 Pro because by the time I was saving up for a PS4, that was still at $400. They announced the PS4 Pro at $400, and I'm like, might as well get that. It's my first one. So might as well, give myself a little bit extra something nice for my first ever part-time job. But basically, the Switch being a much weaker console, I keep looking over there because that's where my consoles are. The Switch, right over here, is weaker, it's smaller, and even though games like Doom can, yes, run on it with some extra time and effort put into it, it doesn't mean that you only have to develop AAA titles for it or port over. Because it's weaker, it's less powerful, and graphics aren't as the biggest demand thing, because even PS4 players of Doom and PC gamers have even admitted that the Switch, being in the position that it is, made Doom worth it because it's portable, which proved that they don't need graphics. It's just proof that graphics aren't needed. And because of that, if it's exclusively developed for Switch, or mainly for Switch owners in mind, that just happens to have a slightly prettier version on PS4, if it's developed with Switch in mind, we can see stuff like we did with the 3DS, where Yes, they're smaller titles, but they're exclusive or titles that work well for the console. It doesn't cost as much money to develop for. And just to slap an extra shader on it, maybe some extra high resolution textures here and there, and you can put it over the PS4 just easily, but it's mainly marketed towards Switch. Or it can be just flat exclusive to Switch, like I said. So with that kind of game to being exclusive, we can see a lot more diverse games that are, of course, smaller games, but they're of genres we haven't seen much. We can see stuff like Fast Racing Neo. We can see stuff that are more indie-esque in terms of design, but made by AAA companies. Of older franchises that we have seen long dead, like if Crash Bandicoot is coming back with a brand new game, the Crash trilogy is already going to be on Switch pretty soon. So it could be developed with Switch owners in mind. It could be developed with also PS4 in mind and just really try to push the formula. But if it's still a lot more simpler of the N64 or GameCube era type of games, we can see more of those come back. We even seen from Nintendo with games like Odyssey. It's just essentially the improved formula of games like 64 and Sunshine. Just with a tinge of Banjo-Kazooie, like when you grab a power moon, you don't restart at the beginning of the level. But rather, certain moons progress the area to a new setting that allows you to get access to more moons. And other moons are just a little bit of extra things that you can grab. Then you have just a lot of developers just being generally interested in the Switch who weren't never really that interested with Nintendo in the first place. The Switch is powerful enough and has a large enough install base similar to the 3DS, where you can do new and better games that Switch can do that isn't as graphically inclined as your PS4, so thus it costs less money, it costs less time, and you can develop something on the side while still having your A team develop your big, super duper Call of Duty games, and you get to have a much more fun, more unique, smaller experience. Might not even be an old game, but rather a new idea that had been kicking around so much, but they were afraid that it would kill the bank if they were to develop for the PS4 and didn't sell well, because it's expected to have great graphics, but if you made it exclusive for Switch, it just needs to look good enough. So thus we get a new exclusive game for the Switch. If it looks good enough, costs less money, and if it doesn't sell all that well guess what? It didn't kill them. Every successful game in development must pay for all their failures, but since game development is getting more and more expensive, they can make a smaller title that's more worth their time and money now than if they were to develop for the PS4, because the PS4 would be too powerful for its own good, and those smaller ideas get pushed off to the wayside or don't get enough push. While if it was made for exclusive for the Switch, Nintendo will help push it in the directs and such, which can also give them extra advertising and market that they wouldn't otherwise has. Nintendo fans love strange and unique new ideas. That's an entire new market for all these small new games. Like, this gives the door open for so many new games that developers have been wanting to do for so long now, that now they have a platform that's easy to develop for, that's not as powerful as the PS4, so it won't break the bank, and it has an install base that just wants to play new games with new ideas, thus allowing you to be more experimental. And since it's all cheaper, it's not going to be that bad if it flops, because you're still developing your AAA titles for your AAA consoles. That's the Switch's unique opportunity. So, my nose is itchy on the side. Anyway, that's what I think the Switch has a unique opportunity for, is those types of games. Just new ideas that developers want to be doing, but their investors don't care for it. It's too expensive. Graphics, it just make it realistic. They can actually do new things now and be exclusive to the Switch because it's cheaper that way. And maybe a slightly graphically enhanced port on PS4 or something. Just slap an extra shader on it. Anyway, that's just my general idea. Yeah. Hope you liked the video. Now I'm going to turn on my monitor and come on, turn back on, and I'll end the video and say goodbye. Now I'm going to be editing that first bit out because that was bad. Anyway, thank you for watching.